Hello, lads and lasses of the uh, pipe smokers of Ireland community. This is the Pipepastor here with my beautiful daughter Shakinah, Shak,
Hello.
and we're camping up at Edison Lake and Camp Edison, enjoying the week with each other. And we were here last year, and so just a great time reattaching with my daughter and reconnecting with her. And she's a great camper, a great little camper, a little stud. And we both are wired about the same, and we have beast mode going on all the time. But anyway, uh, she's graced me with being part of the video today. She's going to hang out with us, maybe give us some of her 2 cents. You have to smoke a pipe though. And we're continuing a discussion on a book of the Bible. Without meaning to be a Bible study, you guys, I don't want to abuse my time here by making you feel I'm trying to convert you or that I'm trying to preach at you or whatever. I really enjoy being with guys and having some meaty discussions about life. And there's no better prompting to have a great discussion about, what is this all about? Why am I running so hard? Why am I trying to get so much? Why am I so frantic to try to get all that I can and not even appreciating the stuff I'm tasting in my mouth or feeling with my body, So book of Ecclesiastes is dead on, and most of the songs of the 60s, 70s, they were shaped by either a negative understanding of Ecclesiastes or a positive. The passage that we're reading today has a very positive song that came out of the late 60s by the Byrds, and it was entitled Turn, Turn, Turn. One of probably the most poetic passages to read. And we started to deal with this last week. We're dealing with the war between the line and the circle. And basically the circle represents the way that pagans look at time, and that they look at it as cyclical. It just keeps going round and round and around. Billy Preston sang a song years and years and years ago called We Go Round in Circles. We fly high like the birds up in the sky. Well, that rock song was Buddhist and Taoist in its philosophy, but basically it's a pagan understanding that we're just going around in circles and going around and round and round and round circles. No destiny, no beginning, no end. And basically, in existential philosophy, that is hopelessness and despair. It leads to hopelessness and despair. So we began talking about the idea of time last week. And Shekinah is going to read the passage for us, starting with verse 1 to verse 11 in a minute. Let me just say that when it's talking about seasons and a time for everything, it's basically contrasting the word chronos in Greek and the word kairos. And chronos is time that we understand is cyclical, 24 hours a day. It's the way that we measure time. And so chronological comes from that, chronological watch, things like that has chronos in it, is just a measurement of time. Kairos, on the other hand, are those spikes in time where, time's going around 24 hours. Tomorrow it's going to be 24 hours, but tomorrow's Shekinah's birthday, let's say. And that makes that regular day a spike. It makes it a special day. Christmas, we celebrate the incarnation of Jesus. That's a special day. It's a spike day. 4th of July, a spike day. We call those kairos moments because they are out of the ordinary and they somehow connect the dots in our cyclical year so that there is some kind of meaning. So the way that Jews and Christians understand time is through the Bible. And the biblical worldview understands time to be, yes, it has cycles. It has cycles, and we honor God in those cycles, but the cycle is moving forward. It had a beginning, and it has a destiny. It has an end. This is all going to end someday, and it's going to end on purpose. And it's going to end with fulfilling a purpose that started when God made the world and will end when God remakes it. And so in a linear understanding of time, we have hope. We're moving forward. Today might suck. I mean, it may hurt, and some of you are really in a lot of pain today. And the hope of the Christian worldview, the biblical worldview of time, is that there is a purpose in your suffering now that will make sense as the pain lessens and you go forward. It's not going to be the same. This will not last. And it goes both ways. You could have won the lottery today, ecstatic, happy as can be. It's not going to last. There will be pain coming. And when the pain comes, it's going to feel like it lasts forever, but it won't last. And good is going to come. And this moves us forward. It continues to move us forward to the ultimate day when the thing that lasts is the joy of eternal life. That's the Christian worldview. Anyway, so with that in mind, I'm going to let Shakinah read from the New International Version, Ecclesiastes, starting with verse 1 of chapter 3 to verse 11.
To everything there is a season, a time for every purpose under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck what is planted, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to gain and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time of war and a time of peace. What profit has the worker from that in which he labors? I have seen the God-given task with which the sons of men are to be occupied. He has made everything beautiful in its time.
Beautiful, isn't that beautiful? And so you'll recognize the bird song in there. To everything, turn, turn. Well, turning, they've got the turning going on there, cycle, but to everything there is a time and a purpose under heaven. So we talked about that, and you know, I hate to be oversimplified. I know that things are complex, but for the sake of simplicity, let me just say that the whole battle between secular humanism, atheism, paganism, if you will, and biblical or orthodox Christianity is the battle between the circle and the line. One is a philosophy of existence that many college students might initially feel when they learn it, feels that it sounds right, it feels good, it's deep. But eventually, if they stay with it, it'll lead to despair and it leads to death. Proverbs 4:12 says, there's a way that may seem right to a person, but it leads to death. It may seem right initially, but it leads to death. So the other is a theology of human existence that leads to life, and it leads to peace because it says that there's meaning in our fried chicken. There's meaning in the birth of my baby. There's meaning in the loss of my mother. There's meaning in the evil that may befall me in life. There is meaning. There is purpose. It's not just random. It counts for something. And so it talks about that, and it says that happens in its season. In its season. There's a season for everything. And so because God appoints all things, this is again the biblical Christian worldview, because God appoints all things, He's in control of all things. And what that means is, the hope is, in time and in its season, God makes everything. He just turns out everything so that it's beautiful. And for some of you where you're at right now, that's a hard truth to understand. How could He make this beautiful? And you can't understand it that side of the pain, that side of the railroad track, that side of the collision, that side of the tragedy. But for people to hope in God, it pulls us forward knowing, I don't have to get that right now. I don't have to understand that right now, but I know God is pulling me forward, not just in a cycle, but forward. And as I get away from this initial trauma, one day there may be a meaning and a point to it that makes it beautiful. So, in proper context, let me talk about the verses that are contrasting things. We see that in verses 2 through 8. And in those 7 verses, Solomon makes 28 different statements, 14 negative, 14 positive. And the first pair contrasts birth and it contrasts death. and they serve as kind of a parenthesis that every other event follows. Everything happens between the time that we're born and the time that we die. And what happens in between our birth, which is a kairos moment, and our death, which is a kairos moment, are other kairos moments that make our life in there meaningful. That's why we have an epitaph. Our epitaph says, Pete Bertolero was here. You know, it meant something that he lived and he was here, and made some kind of a kairos mark in time. So he goes on and he talks about kairos seasons like a time to plant, and rural countries where they are raised on farms. It's a big deal. Planting season, they usually have a party. Harvest season, they usually have a party, because they're high marks to say we're beginning something, we're planting, but we're also going toward the purpose of planting, which is harvesting. And there's absolutely no surprises, thank God, for people that have a deistic worldview to God. He's in control. That makes us feel hopeful that there's God-ordained days, that although we are not given the comfort of the fact that God's going to stop all evil from happening, or else he'd be just a busboy. Mercy would be just something that we're entitled to. So we get a sense that sometimes we expect God to be merciful. Well, if he's merciful upon being expected to be merciful, it's not mercy, is it? It's entitlement. Mercy is something that doesn't have to happen. It shouldn't have to happen. It's when God gives us something that we don't deserve and withholds something that we do deserve, right? And so in this understanding of the ups and downs of life, there is this point where God's mercy can be seen either in the fact that he prevents things from happening, or his mercy can be seen in the fact that those events end up with meaning that makes our lives more richer. Remember that when a child is born, another death is brought about in the world. I think it's every 8 seconds someone dies, and every 3 seconds someone is born. So life and death are happening all the time in life, and just as there's a season for life, there is a season for death, and there is a purpose in that. And then the next two sets present a destructive and a creative activity. In verse 3, Solomon puts it like this: there's a time to kill, and there is a time to heal, a time to tear down, a time to build up. Now the word kill here is not murder. There are two different words in Hebrew for kill and murder. And this is not murder. This is a righteous killing, whether it's killing in war or a killing that involves capital punishment. Whether you believe that or not, I don't know. But the scriptures see that there is a point in capital punishment. And that point is that it causes the evildoer to fear the consequence of his actions. There's a time to heal. And that word heal literally means in Hebrew to sew up something. Something that's bursted open. Well, that is pretty hard. And there's a time when things are burst open, when there's wounding, when there's killing. But there's also a time that God has set where things that have been torn open get sewn up. And there is a time to do that either in physical healing, or a time to do that in a relationship that's been lost and it's been reconciled. And a time to tear down, time to build up, again refers to the demolition of things that have been made in order for something to be reconstructed. That gives some hope. The next two pairs in verse 4 talk about human emotions. There's a time to weep, and there's a time to laugh, a time to mourn, a time to dance. And it's real important, especially to those of you from Ireland and England and Australia and New Zealand, you know, those of you that have been blamed for being rather cold and calculating at times, versus our other half of the world, you know, because we're half Italian, and people that are very emotional and very passionate, and you never have to worry about what they're thinking, because we're doing hand signals and doing all kinds of things, letting people know what we're thinking. The meaningful life, and a person that's getting the most out of life, understands that there is a point when we mourn, when we grieve. And I usually tell people, listen, this isn't a time to get answers for why you lost a loved one. The answers aren't going to help you, even if there were. This is a time to grieve, man. Grieve well. Those that love people hard will grieve them hard. And it's wrong to not grieve hard. It's wrong to not acknowledge your losses. When you don't do that, then those energies meant to express that go inside and you become depressed and angry. So there's a meaning to grieving well and mourning well and squeezing every ounce of tears off of your season of mourning and grief. I usually say that grief is like a lapdog, in that you really can't control it. Okay, I'm going to cry now, or I'm going to feel now. It just kind of jumps up in your lap and you've got to pet it and deal with it. And it's the same with joy. Jesus had a problem with people in his day that were out of sync with these things. He said, to what can I compare this generation to? You're like children sitting in a marketplace and you call out to others, we played the pipe for you, but you didn't dance. You refused to dance. And we sang a dirge to you and you refused to mourn. At a time when you should be mourning, you didn't mourn. At a time when you should have been dancing, you didn't dance. And they were out of sync and they weren't feeling that. That's the way people live in a cycle of life. There isn't any point to dancing. There isn't any point to mourning. And what the linear life says, under heaven, not under the sun, is there is a point to everything. And there's a purpose for everything. And we need to be in sync with those purposes if we're enjoying our life to the maximum. In verse 5, it says, a time to scatter stones and a time to gather them, a time to embrace, a time to refrain from embracing. Now, I learned this from my wife, believe it or not, when she searched this out, that this is a Hebrew poetry. A time to scatter stones is talking about a reference to sexual intercourse. And a time to refrain from casting stones is a time to be celibate or to refrain from sexual intercourse. So figure that out. But what the scripture is saying is that there's also a point. There's a point and a purpose to a time where you refrain from sexual intercourse and a time when you come back again together in that celebration of two people's love. Then in verse 6, there's a time to search, a time to give up, a time to keep, a time to throw away. And the thought here deals with the fleeting natures of our possessions. And I don't know about how much this is in England. I know the English and the Europeans in general are very critical of the consumerism in America. But I don't think it's just an American problem. I think that we're very prosperous and therefore very prone to be materialistic and consumeristic in a crass kind of way. But I think it's a problem every human being has. And it seems that when we're buying clothes, we buy clothes in America all the time, and we take clothes to Goodwill. We buy a new car, we sell our clunker. We search for various misplaced possessions, and then we accept that we'll never find them in the mess of our closet or our garage because we continue to hoard stuff we don't need. So verse 6 is really a biblical proof text for garage sales and against hoarding. Anyway, winding down, verse 7 says there's a time to tear down, there's a time to mend, a time to be silent, a time to speak. And that's very important that people understand that. There's a time when you need to stop speaking for a purpose and to do it intentionally. And there's a time when you need to speak up. A time to love, verse 8, and a time to hate. A time for war and a time for peace. And in this politically correct, tolerant society, it denies the time to hate. It says that, we shouldn't hate anything. And, we should not be so against something that we're intolerable for anything. What the scripture says is there's a time when evil happens and you should hate what happened. It's hard to differentiate the person that did it from the deed they did. And I know it's very easy to say we should hate the sin, but we should love the sinner. But doggone it, sometimes that's very hard to do because the person and the deed are sometimes inseparable. And so what the scriptures advocate is that a man that's living a simple life and a meaningful life will also understand the propriety of, at times, hating the evil that's being done and hating the person that did it for the evil that they did. There's also in Christian theology the point that we cannot hate someone to the point that we have vengeance upon them or that we kill them or whatever else. And it's the person in touch with the grace of God that is able to pray for the evildoer. But I got to confess to you, every time I read of the new tortures that are being done in the name of Islam against Christians, it's very hard for me to remember to hate what they're doing, but not hate those that are doing it. It's tough. But again, the meaningful life will find purpose in times where you are violently against and hate the evil that's being done and are moved to action to stop it. There's a time for war and there's a time for peace. This is against a utopian society. This is the smartest man that's ever lived, and he's saying utopia is not possible. It's seasons that are going in a linear direction, and in those seasons, not everything is always good, not everything is always bad. There is a time when we need to fight against those that would take away peace, and there's a time when we need to learn to live in peace. So, yeah, as much as we want peace, remember that Jesus never told us to pray for a lasting peace. What Jesus said was to pray for the Prince of Peace, because only through him can real peace come. But then I'm getting on my preaching side. So we wind down and it says, what do the workers gain from their toil? I've seen the burden of God that he has laid upon the human race. He's made everything beautiful in its time. And that's the rub of today when talking about the circle and the line. In a cyclical life, all you're looking forward to is a rehash of the bad things that are happening, a rehash of the good things that are happening. One leads to boredom, the other leads to despair. In the linear type of life, we understand that we're going to get hurt and we're going to get scars. And scars represent a wound that's been sewn together and has been healed. And healing happens in a number of different ways, but one of those ways is that we become reconciled to the fact that what someone might have meant for evil, when we turn to God and when we have hope in God, God means it for good and he turns it out for good. You know that from your own life. You want to share anything about that?
About God turning things into good?
I mean, does he not turn things beautiful?
I mean, I feel very undeserving of the mercy he's shown me and the grace he's shown me, and just that's so evident in my life. I've gone through the seasons that my dad was talking about, the ups and downs, and he constantly reminds me there's seasons. There's a start and there's an end, because when you're in it, you don't see the end. You don't feel like there's that there's light at the end of the tunnel. You don't see the blessings that are going to come, because all you're stuck on is the thorns on the rose. You don't see the rose on the top. You're just stuck on the stem and the thorns. And for me, I've had to trust in that a lot. Okay, Lord, this is a season. You're going to help me navigate through this, because when I do it, I fail miserably. I fall short all the time. I can't make it through. So I have to constantly, back to the biblical worldview, I have to constantly lean on the Lord. I don't know how people do that without having that promise that the Lord's going to see you through it. And that's happened in my life. It's continued to happen. I'm in a season of pain right now, and I have to remember it's a season, and that the same God that took me through different seasons of my life where I didn't feel like there was hope is the same one that's helping me through now, and he's gonna show me that there's redemption and there's promise in that, and these scriptures, a time to love, a time to hate, a time to speak, a time to be quiet. I'm learning that, trying to learn that, but I don't know if I answered that correctly, but
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. There's definitely dark seasons in my life where I would used to write lots of poetry and write to the Lord, and that's kind of how I communicated and expressed all my my thoughts and emotions. And I remember reading those poems thinking, oh my gosh, what a dark place. Like, I did not see how I was going to get out of that, and the Lord, he came through. He brought me through that in such a way that now I can use it as a testament to his faithfulness and his glory, and so I'm living proof.
You got to remember the second law of thermodynamics that we talked about before is entropy. And what that means is that the law is all things decay, all things fall into chaos. The thing is, in a world that is ruled by chaos, there's structure. There's still order and there's still structure. Where does that order and structure come from?
Hmm.
Structure and order doesn't happen. Chaos happens. So where does the structure or the principle of structure and order come from? Some of you no doubt will say, yeah, I appreciate what you guys are saying. I'm not a Christian, however, and I do believe things are going to turn out well, even though I don't have a God figure that I look to. And that's great. But the point of discussion I would have with that is that you're trusting in chance. You're trusting that by chance or by luck, your luck is going to change. And you know, that's kind of iffy for me. You know, it's a little bit too iffy for me. What brings me more comfort is knowing I'm not trusting in chance or luck, but in someone who has disclosed himself to me and revealed his nature to me as trustworthy, faithful, and good, even when everything points to the fact that he went to Bermuda and forgot me. If I just trust that, I will see light at the end of the tunnel. And I'm 61 years old this year. I've lived on the earth 61 years. And I have seen some very bad things. My own life, I should be a sociopath or a psychopath. My dad tried to kill my mom in front of me. And, domestic violence, alcoholism, drug addiction on my side of the family, drug addiction for me. There's a lot of unfortunate things that happen in the shaping of my own life that does not make sense out of my life now. I should be a very evil and wicked person. But someone that's struggled with fatherlessness has helped a lot of guys find the father in themselves, that found comfort, learned about manhood. Just the relationship I have with my daughter and my relationship with my sons seems, when we're together, to touch people at the core of their personhood, because those very base needs they did not get met. The fact that I'm meeting those needs in my children is a miracle. It wasn't chance, and it wasn't luck. It was someone reached down and pulled me out and made my life beautiful. A life that should not be beautiful, he made beautiful in its time. Do I look back and think, oh, that was beautiful that my mom got beaten, that my mom almost got beaten to death and suffered all those things? Was that beautiful? No, that was evil. That was a time to hate. What's beautiful is now, looking back, I can see out of that soil, God gave me a passion I probably would not have had. How many people do you know that are earth shakers who had a good childhood? Not very many. They all came out of the chaos of very wicked or evil things or painful things. But somebody gave them order. Somebody pulled them out. And for us, it's not chance. It's not luck. It's a very great person. It's a person in heaven, and that we live our lives under heaven, believing in time he'll make all things beautiful. And our prayer is, whether you're a Christian or not, whether you believe in luck or not, that's cool. But if you don't mind, we're praying today that you will realize this promise out of Ecclesiastes, beautiful promise out of Ecclesiastes 3:11, that in time, as you move forward, not cyclical but linearly, God's going to make things in your life you thought were the ruin of you, the means of a beautiful life. Well, this is a Pipepastor coming to you from Camp Edison with Beast Mode, Shakinah, Ray. And we're privileged to talk to you and glad to see you. And we're going to make some music now, I think. I don't know. Are we going to? It's a little cold.
We got this. Hot-blooded Italians. Stay tuned, because we will put something on his channel. We're going to put some music on. You're going to like it. You're going to share it. We're going to be famous around the world. The season to dance and sing, right, Dad?
Yes, the season to dance. And to Kaylee, keep the green hair. It's awesome. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.